Hey there, it's Amy. Welcome back to Mental Health Warrior and Neurospicy Mama, where we dig deep, get real, and tackle the stuff that actually changes lives. If you're tuning in today, you're in for an absolutely incredible conversation that's as honest as it is hopeful. Today, I'm sitting down with Dr. Michelle Sherman, a powerhouse clinical psychologist, researcher, and fierce mental health advocate who's been on the front lines for over 30 years. Not only has she dedicated her life to supporting families living with mental illness and trauma, she's teamed up with her own mother to create game-changing resources that are equipping parents, teens, and loved ones everywhere with the tools they need to understand, communicate, and heal. We're going to dive into breaking the stigma, the tough conversations between parents and kids, the reality of living and loving through mental health challenges, and why hope is so much more than a nice idea. Trust me, you're going to walk away from this episode not only inspired, but armed with practical tools and a renewed sense of possibility. So settle in, grab your notebook, and get ready, because this is a conversation I know you're going to want to come back to again and again. Let's jump in. Today we're talking with Dr. Michelle Sherman. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here, Amy.
Oh, we're happy to have you. I was reading a little bit of information about you and your daughter are very close, and you've done some projects together.
It's actually my mother. The two
Oh, it's your mother.
together. Yes, I am the daughter. She is the mother. For 20 years, Amy. So a long
Oh my gosh.
in creating resources for families in which a member has a mental illness or trauma history. So yeah, it's been a long time.
Wow. And what made this a focal point of yours and your mom's?
Yeah, really, there are two answers to that question. One is my professional experience. I've been a clinical psychologist about 30 years, and I've really noticed and seen and been impacted by the impacts of mental illness and PTSD on relationships, be it partners, parents, siblings, friends, children.
Yeah.
Historically, our field has done a pretty poor job, I think, of seeing, including, educating, empowering, helping these families. And so it's really been what I focused my career on, honest, is supporting families. And so in the VA system, I worked in the VA for about 17 years. I developed and did research on family education programs for adults who loved a veteran, which is the VA system, a veteran who had a mental illness or PTSD. And so did that for quite a long time and did multiple family groups, which was really cool. You brought the veteran, the family member in and did some education and therapeutic activities. And that was really cool. And then about 20 years ago, I said to my mom, who's an educator and a mental health advocate, hey, do you want to write a book with me? Well, yes. And so that's where it started. We wrote 3 in the mid 2000s, and then we've just released 2 more in the past few months, actually. But in addition to my professional passion, absolutely both have personal passion of having loved ones and friends who live with mental illness and trauma. So it's not only a professional, but also a personal passion.
Okay. That's why I do what I do. It's a personal passion of mine, having lived experience and having a daughter who is on the spectrum and has some other issues as well.
Uh-huh.
It goes both ways, that I've got bipolar disorder and she's got some other issues.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to talk about her too much, but I'm very interested in what kind of tools you found to help people.
Yeah, exactly. So are you wanting me to focus on the parents, the teens, the partners, because in the 2 books that we wrote, again, one for adults and one for teen, they are similar in terms of their focus on how to understand the illness, how to take care of yourself, how to set limits. Yeah, how to empower and to be loving, yet also have your own life and take good care of your own needs. But they're different, of course, because the roles of teenager versus adult are a little bit different. So tell me kind of more specific. And then obviously I do couples therapy. I've done that for 30 years too. And so I also work with that kind of level. So tell me more specifically kind of what you'd be helpful for me to start off with.
Well, I'm in a lot of Facebook groups with women who are wondering, should they tell their children and
Yeah.
what age should they tell them and how do they tell them that they're
Oh, it's so great, Amy. Oh, that's so great. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you my opinion. What do you think?
I told my daughter as soon as I thought she'd understand it. She was probably about 8.
Yeah. 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 Is that the common consensus that you hear from other people on social media?
Most people say, yeah, when they're able to take it in. I needed to tell my daughter honestly because I wasn't doing well at the time and I had yelled at her and I wanted her to know that was a problem that I had and it wasn't her.
Yeah. I mean, I so agree. And it's also, we'll quickly add that it's hard because we adults struggle to know how to talk about, explain, understand mental illness or trauma. And so we would understand it may be hard for kids to understand. And there are so many emotions involved. But I am very much a supporter of your perspective of developmentally appropriate ways, not a one-time conversation. And we listen as much as we talk, and we identify ways in which it may be impacting them and their thoughts and feelings and questions. The I'm Not Alone book, The Teen's Guide to Living with a Parent Who Has Mental Illness or History of Trauma, has all sorts of information in the first part about what mental illness is, overlap of substance abuse, overlap of trauma, all this sort of stuff. But then the second whole part is all about managing yourself in relationship, meaning coping tools and skills for me when I feel angry, when I feel confused, when I feel embarrassed, when I feel sad, when I feel scared, coping tools for yourself, how to talk to your friends, if and what to say to your friends. It's such a huge, huge issue. How to support your parent, yet not be their caregiver. It's a hard thing that, of course, changes over time. And then we have a whole section on understanding that as a biological offspring, you are at higher risk. And so what can you do about it? What can you focus on? What you have control over? Being aware of early warning signs, educating yourself. And then the research is growing, honestly, Amy, in terms of more awareness that there are actually things that teens, young people can do that may prevent the development of mental illness in themselves.
Oh.
If they do develop it, they have better tools to cope with it. So that's the whole last section of our book. And
Wow.
so this is honestly the second edition of it. We wrote our first edition, as I said, in 2005, and a lot's changed in 20 years. So we really
Wow.
updated and things like that. So those are some of the areas. But we talk in both books about how to communicate, how to set limits, how to take care of yourself, dealing with stigma, discrimination. There are so many things. And then taking care of your own wellness. There's the imperative of that. So there are a lot of skills that we talk about. But to get back more specifically to your question, I absolutely agree about the importance of talking about it because what do we know? The research tells us that kids want to know. Kids often make up worse answers in their own mind than the actual reality. And thirdly, and probably most importantly, kids often blame themselves. They think, what did I do wrong? I blamed myself for doing poorly on the test, and that's why mom was mad. Or I didn't clean up my room, and that's why dad was really angry or hibernating his room for days or whatever else. Or I got in a fight with my brother, and that's why mom is now hibernating or drinking to excess tonight or whatever else. So that huge tendency to blame oneself, really a huge thing that we try to help kids recognize it's not their fault.
Right. And I also gave my daughter the power to say to me, Mom, you're over the line, or Mom, that was not a nice tone, or something like that, and that she won't get in trouble for that.
Oh, that's huge, Amy.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So a lot of times she will just say, Mom, I don't think you meant to be, but that was really harsh.
Yeah.
Say, oh my gosh, you know what? It was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm sorry.
Exactly. Good for you for being open to that. Not all parents are open to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So good. It takes some humility, I think, Amy, to be willing and to invite that feedback and some courage and strength on your daughter's part.
Yes. Well, that's one thing she has in manyfold her and
For her, that's huge. I'm sure that serves her well.
yes. So I'm interested in what changes have happened over the last 20 years.
Oh, gosh. It's a great question. Certainly the huge growth of social media is a really big difference. And with that, I think comes some increase in knowledge, talking about awareness of mental illness. Sadly, of course, there's a lot of wrong information out there and scary and dangerous information. So I'm not saying it's all good, but compared to 20 years ago, I think teenagers know a lot more about depression, trauma. I mean, everyone knows what PTSD is, right? As in the past, they didn't. So I think A, there's more knowledge. B, and again, you'll have to forgive me when I cite research because I'm kind of a research nerd. I like to say things that it's not just Michelle Sherman's opinion, but actually what science has found. Okay. And then it's found in huge nationwide public opinion surveys, there has been decrease in societal stigma toward depression, which is good. Now, not unfortunately for some other things like schizophrenia, we haven't seen improvements in that, but overall, in some parts, there have been some decreases in stigma. So that's a positive thing. Simultaneously, there hasn't always been trauma, of course, but there is so much trauma in the news, in the schools, in the churches, in the malls, and things like that. And so young people, I think, are bombarded by the amount of trauma around us in the immediate 24/7 news cycle that is also different from 20 years ago. And so living in a world, plus the current political issues and things like that are stressful for many families, there are a lot of things that really are affecting young people and their experience. Cyberbullying, so many ways in which people didn't communicate before. And so it's a different world. And certainly some strengths, some positive things, but also some ways in which it's a hard time to be a teenager.
Oh, it definitely is. The cyberbullying is what scares me the most.
Yeah.
Because you don't know. So, yeah, that's scary.
Exactly. So it's a different world.
Yeah, my daughter's 14 and I still haven't allowed her to get on Facebook or Instagram. Those things. So, see, someday she'll want to do that. And I'm like, why can't I?
For adults to navigate, being hacked and all this stuff, much less a young person, and who knows if it's you. And it's scary. And again, there's definitely some good and helpful information out there about mental illness and things, but also you can easily find, how to have an eating disorder, or let's join a club to all do X, Y, and Z that I don't think are helpful. So we have to be careful about what kids are being exposed to.
Yes. The one good thing is when you talked about the stigma breaking down, you can really go on all these podcast sites on, Apple or wherever, and there are tons of podcasts on bipolar disorder, depression, PTSD, ADHD. I mean, just everything. And most of them are really good and have some educational information in them.
Great. Yeah. Again, so many more sources of information, right?
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's good. More talking, more awareness, more people trying to advocate and things like that. Obviously, NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness.
NAMI.
Yeah, Me Too has organizations in almost every state across the country, and free support groups, both for the person with the illness and adults. Unfortunately, most NAMIs don't have stuff for teens whose parent has mental illness. They certainly have some stuff for youth who have mental illness themselves. But to be honest, Amy, I really dedicated a lot of years to trying to help the field see, recognize, and support these young people. But it's been really hard because it's basically, let's name it, prevention.
Right.
As we know, due to nature and nurture, they're at higher risk. So let's put money into talking about what are their needs, what are their experiences, how can we intervene early and maybe prevent the development of long-term difficulties. But it's hard because so often our healthcare system is reactive. We're dealing with the crisis in front of us, which, again, that needs to be addressed, of course. But I continue to try to think about moving the needle. Even something very little, Amy, like if we were to get mental health providers to even ask consistently to the adults, do you have children? Much less, how are the children doing? That's not constantly asked. It's not. And I appreciate having worked with lots of healthcare providers over my career. Let them say, well, Michelle, I don't have time. And I only have 10 minutes and I have to do this and then I get it. And the role of being a parent you probably know, is a reason for getting out of bed in the morning sometimes. Right. It's a reason to take my medication or not drink or go to treatment or whatever else it could be. So if we're not talking about that, we're missing something big.
Yeah, it's the reason I'm here.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. I've had some dark days, but my kids kept me coming back.
absolutely. Absolutely. That's precisely what we think. And so we need to help the healthcare system talk about it. Now, I think part of the reason that they don't is, well, what do I do? For example, we'll make up a name. This is fictional. Dr. Smith is an adult psychiatrist and sees patient after patient after patient. And like one person says, oh, I can't hold or connect with my baby, or I'm blowing up and mad all the time at my teenager, or whatever else. What there have been very few resources for these teenagers, for the adult providers to give them. And so that's part of, again, why we wrote this book, is to try to help them have something they can give to the family. And I'm Not Alone can be not only for the teenager, but for the adult to read, to help open conversation. How do I
That is
possibly?
wonderful. What is the name of that book again?
I'm Not Alone. A
I'm
teen's
Not
guide.
Alone.
Excuse me, a teen's guide to living with a parent who has a mental illness or a history of trauma.
What do you find that teenagers find the hardest to deal with if they've got a parent with a mental health issue?
Such a good question.
Is it the instability or is it the shame or?
I think it's just, you're nailing it. It's just a combination, the unpredictability for sure. It's like, oh, they were doing better. They start this new medication, whatever else. So that, what's so important for teenagers developmentally is their peers. That's the time they're trying to move away developmentally, which is good and healthy. And then, like, I can't even have a friend over, or why is my parent coming or not coming to my activities? What do I say to them? It's different if I say my mom has cancer, or my mom has some other sort of physical health problems, diabetes or something. Then how do you tell your friends my mom has schizophrenia or my mom has PTSD? How do you deal with friends' reactions and questions? So that's, again, precisely why we try to help the parents know how to help the kids, how to talk about this sort of stuff.
Great.
Because I think the peer relations are hard. And then third, they're really self-blame, that whole sense of, gosh, it's about me, which is a huge thing that we try to tackle. It's hard. I don't know. Those are my opinions. What do you think, Amy?
Well, I think those are right on. I definitely want to get that book for my daughter. But I think, like you said, you have to have an open line of communication. And then whatever problems are coming up, if your child feels that they can approach you with that,
Right.
you can work through it together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Super important. Super important. It's not, again, a one-time, here's a book. Okay, bye. Well, you don't think a teenager is going to go on Amazon and say, well, some do. My mom has bipolar disorder, and pop up a book. It's just teens often don't do that. So we're trying to get it to parents, the ones with illness, or other friends, family, partners, grandparents, whatever else, who could then help the young people read and understand and talk about it.
That's great. Oh, I love
There's
that.
such gap, Amy. Are you aware of other resources for teens whose parent has mental illness?
No, my daughter has a psychiatrist and due to her own issues, but which are stem some from mine. Other than that, no. Other than therapy and psychiatry, I wouldn't know what was out there.
Yeah, I just don't think that they're there. I would love if you would even tell her therapist or her psychiatrist or things about it. It's like, hey, you should give this to other families who are struggling. Because the word that I use, Amy, is that they've been invisible. What? Let's address the elephant in the living room, because it's there. And that is, we go from either what we call a systemic neglect, meaning no one even asked, do you have children, to the other extreme, which is very concerning, but an important variable in our conversation. The assumption, wrong. The false assumption that somehow because they have a mental illness, they're not effective parents. Okay. I'm not saying that. I don't agree with that. Don't misread, please. But it's a big problem. And then parents sometimes are afraid to say, oh, I'm so struggling. This is so hard, because they're afraid maybe their children will be taken away.
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's the reality of a fear. It's why a lot of people don't talk to their doctors or whatever about it. And so we need to name that. I think even in your conversation right now, it's like, it's a real risk. And again, not to be a data nerd, but the research does show parents with serious mental illness, their children are at higher risk for having some involvement with Child Protective Services. So not a kind of unfounded thing, but what are we trying to do? How are we trying to help parents, to empower them, to walk alongside them, to support them, rather than the fear-based, we're going to yank your kids out, which of course is so traumatic for everyone.
Oh, right.
Obviously. But, we need to be thoughtful about how this happens.
Yeah. And I think that when you talk about parents being concerned about having their kid taken away, I think
Yep.
it's more than that as well. I think there's a lot of guilt on the parent side if their child does
Huge.
have any mental health issues.
Huge.
They feel like they caused that. And yeah, I know a lot of women on the Facebook groups I belong to will post, I really want to have a family, but I don't think that I should. Is it okay for me to do that?
Wait,
Yeah.
absolutely. And that's scary, right?
Yeah.
Here to think about. And again, I am a person who is very compassionate and caring, but I'm also honest. Okay.
Hmm.
And so the research does show that if a parent has a serious mental illness, the children are at higher risk. I mean, we need to be honest here, right? That's not
Yeah.
saying for sure that they will. And the whole third part of our book is what are some protective factors, things that we can help them to maybe
Mhm.
prevent or to make it less difficult because I have coping tools to cope with it. But it's a reality. It's something to discuss and be aware of. Now, of course, we need to be very quick to say, hey, there are a lot of really good treatments. More and more are being developed every day for lots of mental illnesses. So many people, many people recover and live a very positive and healthy and high functioning life with all sorts of natural supports, friends, church, exercise, vitamin D, sometimes therapy, sometimes groups, peer support, medication. There's so many options now. So yes, there is a risk, and there are lots of ways in which people can cope in a healthy way if they do develop mental health problems.
Definitely. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about what recovery actually involves or what it encompasses, because I have to tell you, I really just recently heard of recovery when talking
Mhm,
about like bipolar disorder or something.
mhm.
And I've always been of the mind that you never recover from it. You just maybe like you're going into remission, but it's always there if you have a bad, day or whatever. What is recovery for someone with a mental health issue?
Oh, Amy, thanks for saying that. I love that question. This is so important, and I really hope the listeners resonate with this. So, in the olden days, we use the word recovery primarily with addiction. Okay.
Mhm.
They're in recovery from alcoholism or from cocaine use or whatever else. That's how it used to be used. Okay. It's really a different meaning now.
Okay.
Recovery with mental illness does not mean absence of symptoms.
Oh,
Some people, not all, of course, we know, like, for example, with schizophrenia, about a third of people over the course of their life get to the point that they don't have symptoms. Huh. So, for some people, it may be absence of symptoms or very well controlled symptoms, but it's actually not just that.
okay.
Recovery is really more defined as living a life that is using your own personal gifts and making a difference in your own way and feeling like you are. Yeah, you have a reason to get out of bed, that you have goals that you're working toward, you have meaningful relationships, a sense of community, okay, a sense of belonging. These are huge. And that you feel like you are contributing in some way. And that's different for every single person. Could be that you're in a
Right.
bowling club, could be that you're a volunteer, could be that you're holding a job. All sorts of different things there could be. Being a parent, that's huge. Okay. So it's not absence of symptoms necessarily, but I
Mhm.
feel like I'm able to contribute to feel good about myself, to have a good sense of my sense in relationship to others, that I'm not in bed alone and ashamed and not engaging with the world. Recovering
Yeah.
also not linear. It's not like, okay, I'm here, I'm recovered. Every day sort of thing that we work toward. Because, let's face it, life's hard.
Yeah.
Diagnosed mental illness or not, we're all kind of struggling with stuff. And so recovery, working on ourselves, our meaning, our purpose, it's a lifelong process for everyone. That's how I see recovery. What does that sound like to you?
I think that sounds great. It definitely makes more sense because I saw it as so finite before. And the way you're talking about it's more individual and more,
Yes,
are you living a life that's fulfilling for you and
absolutely.
your range of abilities?
Exactly. And what's
Yeah.
important to you? Because for some people, it could be really, really important to get a job. Okay. For someone else, it may be really, really important to date. Okay.
Mhm.
We talk about whatever your goals are. So it's very individualized, culture specific within your culture, what matters to you. Okay. Taking into context all the uniqueness of each individual.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I love that you say that. And it's really a mind shift from you're not drinking or drugging anymore. Well, no, that could be part of it. That could be
Mhm.
part of someone's recovery, but it's really much broader than that.
Okay. And so, how did you and your mom tell me more about writing these books?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'd love to. So, as I said, she's a teacher and a mental health advocate. And we've been writing, these are our fourth and fifth books that we just came out with a couple months ago, them for about 20 years. But basically, at the beginning of COVID, on 2020, I said to my mom, "Hey, do you want to write another book?" And her response is so sweet. She's like, "Anything with you, darling."
Oh,
It's so sweet. So frankly, every weekend through all of COVID, because we both are fairly immune compromised, and so we've been really cautious. So every weekend and many days of the week, she would come over or do work. We only live like half an hour away from each other. And we really worked hard on these two together. We're very complementary in our skills. So I typically write and work more with kind of the professional audience and things, and I do psychotherapy, of course. But sometimes I use psychobabble, which of course is not good. Explain things in a way that's like, okay, people are not going to relate to this. So my mom brought not only putting it in kind of everyday language, but also as an educator, she really helped with both books. If you look at them, they're highly interactive. So it's not like all this information. You can Google what's the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2. You can Google that. You don't need me to recite that for you. Rather, what we've done is taken the skills that I've learned from families in the 30 years of working with them of what do they need? What does the research tell us? What do the families tell us? And so I put the skills into a book form.
that's wonderful.
Their questions, their activities, their reflection things, they're all opportunities to practice these skills, communication skills, limit setting, problem solve, all this stuff. And so the books are every page, you has activities or exercises or things. It's not just like boring text or stories. We had lots of people review both of our books over the years. And so we have people give us permission to provide their stories in the book. And so it's stuff that you can relate to. And so she really helped put it in as a teacher, how to engage people's hearts, minds, and spirits and reflecting on this stuff. So I would never write with anyone other than her. She's amazing. And B, Amy, writing books is a lot of work.
Oh, yeah.
I've got a full-time job as it is and other responsibilities. And so it's a lot of work. And sometimes it's not fun. Some of the stuff is like not fun at all. And so we lift each other's spirits and help motivate and encourage through some of the challenging things. And then we take breaks. I have a puppy. We play with my puppy. We put walks and things like that because it can be heavy. And as we both said, we both have a personal relationship to mental illness as well with family members. And so if we emotionally get tired, we need to take a break and we support that in each other too. So it's been an awesome collaboration.
Well, that's wonderful. I've definitely am looking forward to checking that out. I love that you've got two different perspectives going on.
Absolutely. It's super important. And again, we've talked a lot about the teen book, which is great because I'm so passionate about that. I also want to mention we have a parallel one for adults. And that one's called Loving Someone with a Mental Illness or History of Trauma, Skills, Hope, and Strength for Your Journey. So that one's not for the person with mental illness, but it's for a partner, a friend, a parent, all these sorts of other people. And similar to the I'm Not Alone, it's all interactive activities, stories, question. This one is actually published by Johns Hopkins University Press. And this one just came out actually 2 months ago. So both these are brand new and just being released. And so they're all on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Target or wherever.
So this one's one I could give to my mom.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly who that's for.
Yeah.
And we would love people to go to our website, which is www.seeds with an S, seedsofhopebooks.com. And you can see sample chapters. You can see other free resources I've created. You can see what people have said, more stuff what we've done. You can listen to all sorts of other podcasts and stuff that we've done. So there's a lot of free stuff on that website. We would love people to check out.
Are they able to actually work with you if they wanted to?
I do provide psychotherapy, but not necessarily through that website. But there is a link, yes, that people can connect in a professional contact. I do have something called a PsyPact, in which I can see people in 40 different U.S. states. So that's kind of cool, actually. Yeah. I only work with adults. I don't see children, but we do have that as an opportunity. So yeah, people can look at my professional site if they want that as well.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. I hadn't heard of that kind of before. My daughter's psychiatrist lives in Kansas. We're on the border of Kansas and Missouri.
Okay.
And so we have to drive there. We're not allowed to do Zoom appointments with him because he doesn't have a license in Missouri.
Yeah, but it depends on the profession. So I'm a psychologist,
Right.
Psychology. I don't know other professions and their roles and things. And not many of us have this credential, actually. So it's kind of a narrow thing. But yeah, I work with people all over the country, actually.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it makes it more accessible because we know one of the real barriers to mental health care is access, people not having openings and things like that. And so the more we can do to break down those barriers, especially rural areas,
Oh,
if you have no professional in town, and maybe it's your best friend's mom or whatever else. And so there's all that stuff like I already know you, you know me. And so it really makes it much more accessible to people.
That's wonderful. So what would you like to leave our listeners with today? If you could leave them with some words of encouragement or anything.
It would be absolutely a message of hope. Our company is called Seeds of Hope Books for a reason. This is hard. This is hard. Loving someone, being a teenager, being a parent, partner, whomever else, it can be a lot of feels. The confusion, the anger, the sadness, the grief, the hope, the unpredictability, as you said. And so we want to honor that, yes, it can be hard. And at the same time, there is very much reason to be hopeful. Both about, as we mentioned a moment ago, all the new treatments and resources and things that are available. And if you're having a hard time struggling to feel hopeful about your loved one, feeling hopeful, there are things that you can do today. So in the back of both of our books, we actually have a page that's called Activities to Lift Your Spirit. Okay, and it's probably 100 or so different things. Most of them don't cost money. They don't take a lot of time. You can probably do by yourself. But it's super important in loving someone with mental illness, of course, to show up, to be support, to advocate for them in ways that you can, and also to set limits and take good care of yourself. Sometimes that's hard because your parent, partner, child, and whoever else may not particularly like it, and you may struggle with issues of guilt. It's like, why can I go have fun when my mom or my daughter or whatever else is asleep for 3 days in the bedroom? It brings up a lot of feelings. And so super important for people to have friends, family, professionals to help them with that. But you're not doing your loved one any good by not taking care of yourself. So
I agree.
Hope for creating your own life that you want, for leaning into community and people can be there for you and support you, and to absolutely hold on to hope.
That's great. Thank you, Michelle. And remind us one more time, it's Seeds of Hope, right? .com?
Seeds of Hope Book.
And seedsofhopebooks.com. Great. I will put that in the show notes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I really, really appreciate it. You can contact me through that. You can look at, again, our other books or resources or things. But again, you can also just go to Amazon and type in the names of the books. But you can see all the stuff. And yeah, seedsofhopebooks.com. And I just want to
try search Dr. Michelle Sherman.
Probably can. Amy, I just want to thank you for your making this conversation available with me and lots of other people, for your courage, because a huge part of what we know, what breaks down stigma, what increases awareness, is people sharing their own story. So you're having your own courage to share your experience and your thoughts and feelings. This goes a long ways. And so I hope that as you continue to share what you have learned from me or others on Facebook and other sorts of groups, hey, there's a book that might help your family, or hey, I heard about this NAMI group or program or whatever else, that ripple effects of the work that you're doing can be really, really powerful. So thank you for all that you're doing. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Oh, thank you. I enjoyed having you on.
Excellent. Yes, me too. Thank you very much.
All right. What an incredible conversation. I want to thank Dr. Michelle Sherman for her vulnerability, her expertise, and her relentless commitment to making mental health resources accessible and practical, especially for families walking through things that are often invisible to the outside world. So here's what I want you to remember as we wrap up today. No matter what role you play, parent, partner, friend, or team, there is hope, there is help, and you are not alone. Dr. Sherman dropped some serious wisdom and gave us tangible tools, but more than anything, she reminded us that the bravest thing you can do is start the conversation and take care of yourself along the way. If you want to learn more or get your hands on the resources Dr. Sherman talked about today, head to seedsofhopebooks.com. I'll have all the links in the show notes. And if this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Leave a review, tag us on social, let us know what hit home for you, because that's how we break the stigma and keep the ripple of hope moving forward. Thank you so much for listening. Keep showing up, keep being honest, and keep taking those small steps every single day. I'm Amy, and I'll see you next time on Mental Health Warrior and Neurospicy Mama. Keep advancing, warriors.